I'm really looking forward to having Yemisi Akindele speak. Coming all the way from the UK. I mean, you can come all the way. And you are talking the nonsense. It's not possible. I'm really looking forward to the session. And I trust Mrs. O that anybody she believes in and commits a microphone to, you can be sure that. Because even she is into leadership. And for her to call a speaker to speak on leadership, you must know that the person knows what she's talking about.
Good afternoon, everybody. Cool. Well, first of all, I want to ask everyone to please put their hands together for Mrs. Ogunde. Thank you so much for putting this together. It's actually described as the largest educational conference in Africa. Absolutely amazing, and I don't dispute it at all. And for sharing, I heard a little bit about what, your contributions. And of course, Mommy, she's around, I think. I'm so grateful that I'm standing on this platform alongside yourselves. I want to say thank you to Mrs. O. Thank you so much for inviting me. I do not take this platform for granted at all. But most of all, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who is present here today. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Because some of you have taken time out of work, some of you have cancelled meetings, whatever it is that you've done, you're here. So you are a winner. Thank you. God bless you guys. So, developing a visionary leadership style for school transformation. Before I go into this, I'm first of all going to describe myself. And then I'm going to give a quotation from my favorite poet, which probably is yours as well, Maya Angelou. So who is Yemisi Akindele? I don't know. So I'm an education consultant, and I'm also a legal consultant. How did I become any of this lot? Education consultant because of my children. I was born in England. I came back to Nigeria maybe when I was about 5. My parents shipped me back when I was 16. And of course, I had my children in the UK. And all I knew about education was what all of us do here. 24/7 study. That's what we do in Nigeria. Lesson after lesson and all that stuff. It doesn't happen in England. It didn't. So where kids in Nigeria, by the age of 3, they're already on their way to school in their long uniforms, even if the little boys, their shorts go to their ankles, I've seen a lot of that. That doesn't happen in the UK. And when they finally get to school, guess what? They're not reading or writing either. And I didn't understand that because I wasn't used to that. So of course I challenged the school, and I was told very simply, oh no, we don't do that. We learn through play. And I was thinking, what? You learn through play? So basically, they teach the children through play, which makes sense at the end of the day, because that's what the kids want to do. So I had to become a teacher, and I started teaching my children. I do not regret it, because today I have 4 graduates, adult children, by the grace of God. They're all at least done masters. One's doing her PhD at the moment. 3 of them are married. And the young... Thank you. 3 of them are married, and I have 4 grandchildren. Praise God. So that's who I am. I enjoy what I do. Because I worked with my children, my friends obviously wanted me to do the same with their children. And that's where High Achievers was born. High Achievers is my outfit. It's a supplementary school that supports the education that is being offered mostly to children of my community. And when I say children of my community, I mean black children in the UK. Because I'm sure a lot of you know that unless your child goes to an independent school or the grammar school, the state schools are just as bad as any other school around the world. Not because the education is not sound, but because the behavior, the resources, they're not as, what you would expect. Simply because it's in England does not mean it is the best. So I just need you to remember that. Yes? So it's very important that you do remember that. There's a joke in my house about Vivian Fowler, and I've shared this with Mrs. Fowler here, Miss Fowler. When my daughter was preparing for the 11 plus exams, like any child, she was playing up, doing her own thing, and I used to threaten her. I would say to her that it's not a threat, even though for her she thought it was a threat. I would be like, if you do not do these papers and pass these exams, you're going to Vivian Fowler. And then I will show, there was one video where we had some of the students working out some math problem on the board. And I swear there's no way I could have done that math question. It looked like Chinese. And there were numbers. And she was shivering that, oh my goodness, I said, yes. I said, that's how they learn in Nigeria. They learn properly. And you will go there. So obviously she worked really hard. Today she's an engineer, thank God. She passed so well, she was actually given a scholarship by the bank. HSBC Bank actually gave her full scholarship to go to school. So yes, so you do have fantastic schools in Nigeria, and you have to be proud of what you have. Be very proud of what you have. So before I actually go into my topic, I'm going to ask some of us here. So, I know most of you are school owners, but of course I know there are teachers here. Now, amongst those teachers, who here, and please don't be shy, and don't lie to us either, who intends to japa? Because I hear a lot of teachers in Nigeria are being enticed to come to the UK to become a teacher or to carry on as a teacher. Do we have anyone in the house? Because I can support you. Put your hands up if you are. No, actually stand up so that I would remember you. I can see you. Right. Well done. I'm glad you did. Let me tell you what you need to hear about that. It's very important that you understand one thing in particular. You have to ask yourself this question. Why does the UK want teachers from Nigeria? That's the first question. UK recognizes that you are good teachers. UK recognizes that. Why and how do they recognize that? They recognize that because we do have students that come over from Nigeria. After you've trained them, they then come over. Some come as young as 10, some even younger, mostly 11, then 13, and of course A-levels. And when they come over, they're surpassing their peers there. Do you see what I'm saying? They're surpassing their peers. And if they're surpassing their peers, that means you've done a good job already. So why do you then want to come? So the answer is simple. Finance, correct? So school owners, pay your staff well. If you pay your staff well, there's no reason for them to come over. Now, let me now tell you something else. For those of you who are intending to come over, you will not be paid well. Oh, yes. You will not be paid well. So listen to this carefully. As it is, the teachers in the UK, and I'm sure you've heard, are on strike. So why are they striking? Because they want more money. So they're not paid well enough. If not, they would not be striking. But guess what? Whatever they're being paid, you're going to be paid 20% less. They've already said that. So it's of no benefit to you. And when you've been paid 20% less, the money you receive does not go home with you either. In Nigeria, I don't know about your tax system, but it doesn't work. In England, the tax system is the oil. It works like a clock. If you do not pay your tax, you go to prison. It's simple. It's simple. Because the tax belongs to the queen. She's late now, but the king is now taking over. So taxes are deducted immediately. And taxes do not just remain as tax from your income. You have to pay what we call council tax. There's a lot of taxes. You have to pay MOT, that's another tax. There's a lot of payments that will come out of that salary before you even get it. Now, your rent is also to be paid, because believe me, no family member is going to keep you past a week, because they have their own issues. So forget the fact that your sister lives there or your uncle lives there. It's not going to work. That's when you know that your family is not your family. Trust me. Because they'll tell you straight up. They'll entertain you for a short period of time, but then you have to find your own fit. You have to sort yourself out, especially if you're working. So by the time you get this salary, you're paying your house rent, you're paying all these taxes I've just mentioned, you're paying, let me tell you how much travel is, travel card. Of course, there's some of you who travel to the UK, so you know what I'm talking about. By the time you buy your travel card for 1 day, travel card for 1 day is £27. And that is just taking you from one place to the other. What if you want to travel further from somewhere else? £27, I don't know how much that is in Naira, but I'm sure it's not, whatever it is. So you have to pay that on a daily basis, out of this same salary. So please, think carefully before you make that decision. England is not what it makes. If I wasn't born in England, believe me, I would not be there. And I spend more time here in Nigeria or around the world than I do in the UK. And I was born there, so you can imagine. That's on one side. Now, trust me, you don't want to come. We have something we call child abuse. I'm sure you have it in Nigeria. But the child abuse that you have in Nigeria and the child abuse that we have in England, totally different. So you've got your child in the class that you're teaching or whatever, and then he's not listening. As you're teaching, he's doing his own thing. He's tapping the table, he's doing this and he's doing that. In Nigeria, what do you do to that child? Okay, cool. In the UK, in England, and every school in England, private or no private, if that child is doing this, doing whatever he's doing, all you can say is, do you want to go to the headmaster's office? That's all you can say to him. You dare not shout at him. You dare not put your hand on him. I'm not talking slap him. I mean put your hand on him, just to even say, Tom, stop doing that. You're not allowed to do that. You are not allowed to even put your hand on him. If that child, if you come into his face and you're saying, why are you doing that? He would report you for being in his space. I'm glad you said that. He would report you for being in his space. Trust me, I am not making any of these things up. If you know anyone in the UK who has a child, call them and ask. Before I came into this hall, I was dealing with a parent whose child has been expelled from school. Why has this child been expelled? Simply because this child shouted at a teacher. It's the child that gets expelled. The child shouted at a teacher, right? So you think that is wrong, which it is. But guess what? Not only did this child get expelled from school, the teacher has the right to say, we don't want that child to come back here because this child shouted at me. Yes? Guess what? That was a Nigerian kid. I work with lots of children, An English kid will do exactly the same thing and nothing happens. In fact, nobody even hears about it. So please be very, very careful before making such decisions. When your friends over there are saying to you, trust me, don't come, they're not lying. It's not a case of, oh, she's better now, she's not better. She's suffering. Trust me, some of us are. I had suffered, and I was born there. So you can imagine, they have called me nigger. They've called me all kinds of names, but it doesn't matter to me because I'm there. I know why I was there, and I know why I am there. So please, before you make that decision to come to the UK, either you've got your business that you're running that will cost, I understand the comfort that you're looking for. I definitely get that. So you're running water, you want your lights to turn on when you want it and stuff like that. You want to be able to walk freely without security following you everywhere. I definitely understand that. That is what is lacking here. But by the grace of God, the new government will provide those things. Amen? Amen. So let's pray that those things do happen. I just want you to be aware of those things that you would not necessarily find out, because the government who is asking you to come is not going to tell you, we're going to pay you less than what we pay our teachers in England. They're not going to tell you there and then that you're not allowed to shout at a child. They're not going to tell you you're not allowed to smack a child. You will find out yourself. And if that does happen, you get kicked out straight away. There's no ifs or buts. There's no discussion because you've done the wrong thing. It's as simple as that. So please, please be careful. Okay. Thank you very much for that. So now you know. Right, okay. Thank you. So, I'm going to talk about the traits and principles of a visionary leader. I think we've got, fantastic, thank you. I'm going to rush through this because I've been given time. So, what are the traits and principles of a visionary leader? I believe you all are, first of all. We're looking at emotional intelligence, which I'm sure somebody has spoken about earlier. Creativity, cultivating learning, communication, nurturing, collaboration. That's where I'm going to focus on. And the last thing I want to talk about is strategy and ensuring results. Now, Maya Angelou, I would like to say, I think I might have it on the next, on my phone. If you give me 2 minutes. So, Maya Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, what do? You do better. Thank you. I just want you to ponder on that for a second or two. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. So what does that tell us? We continue to learn, yeah? To do better. Building a better future. So, I'm going to give you a little bit of stats. A study by the Office for National Statistics found that COVID-19, which we all went through, resulted in 1.53 billion learners out of school. That's a big number. And it impacted 87.6% of the world's total enrolled learners. The World Bank estimated that in April of this year, 2023, universities and other tertiary education institutions were closed in 175 countries, and over 220 million people, post-secondary students, had their studies significantly disturbed due to COVID-19. Another potential area where most schools probably struggled, obviously, is technology. So I'm happy Mr. Jumo came up to talk to us about that. Many families, which I'm sure you all experienced, were unable to provide their children with devices to learn. That wasn't just in Africa, that was also in Nigeria, in England, because as brilliant as England is, we still have poverty going on in there as well. Especially families where there were 2 or more children of school age. I'm sure your schools, some of your parents probably experienced that as well. But most importantly also, some schools were not equipped well enough to navigate the technology acumen required for online teaching, clearly. Now, we can therefore argue that leadership for school transformation is an indispensable element in our constantly changing world. The world in general, and Africa in particular, is changing rapidly, and the core of our evolution is within the school. Right. Can we have the second slide, please? Right, okay. So I'm going to talk about the impact of COVID, because when we talk about visionary leadership, if we're prepared, those things will not catch us suddenly. Some people were already doing online schooling before COVID came in, but most schools weren't. And I'm talking not just Nigeria, I'm talking literally over the world. And we all knew how that affected our children. The impact of COVID, we all know: social distancing, falling behind in education, grade discrepancy awarded from teachers, deaths and long-term unknown illnesses. Now, I would focus mostly on falling behind in education and grade discrepancy. What do I mean by grade discrepancy? I'm not sure what happened here in Nigeria, but in the UK, what we were doing, we were giving kids grades based on, okay, we feel you might have gotten 6 Bs or 7 As. You know where that really became a major problem? For those kids who are not listening, who are rude to the teachers, which teacher is going to give that kid an A star? It's obviously not going to happen. So we had serious problems with that. Grade discrepancy. Then falling behind in education, because of those things I mentioned earlier, where some kids didn't have access to internet, some didn't even have devices to use. So of course, they fell behind. And also, unfortunately, parents weren't able to help their children. Not every parent is knowledgeable. So you have a case whereby they've sent the work home, online, whichever way it's gone home, but they can't do the work because the parents didn't know how to support the children. That was a major, major problem for us, and I'm almost certain there's no way it wouldn't have been a major problem here, because you also have the issue of power here. So apart from the fact that the kids might not have devices, you also have the fact that not every family would have a generator to power these devices. So that was a major problem that we also noticed as one of the impacts of COVID. But as a visionary leader, what did you do? You put things in motion. I know for a fact that Mommy here did so, and so did Ms. Fowler there, because we did some work over that period, and it was absolutely amazing. Now, children in the UK have been severely affected by COVID-19, they were. The closure of schools deprived them of access not only to education, but to the many other things that schools provide. So, from emotional support, life skills, and regular meals. This is where we had the footballer, what's his name, Rashford, a young black man. He then decided to feed every single child in the UK. Isn't that amazing for a young black man to do that? Because, like I said, when you think of UK, it's not all rosy. We do have poverty. So we have those children that sometimes the only meal that they have is the meal that they would have had at school. And when they go home, they go to what is called food banks. The parents have to actually go to food banks to get food. So we do have those issues going on there. So those were some of the issues that we had. Children from disadvantaged families were also disproportionately affected by bereavement, as many had breadwinners in jobs that placed them at high risk of infection. So, for example, the nurses, as you know, we had many nurses that lost their lives during that time. Really sad case. I've got 20 minutes left, I think, I hope. So, going back to Maya Angelou, the quote I read earlier, doing things better. Developing a visionary leadership style for school transformation is, in effect, building schools back better. Every school should adopt a leadership approach that builds a school back better by having, amongst other things, a strategic plan in place, achieving set goals, and bringing together the social community. And that is what I mentioned earlier when I spoke about the traits and principles of a visionary leader, which is communication and nurturing collaboration. And when I say nurturing collaboration, I mean working together as a unit, working together as one unit, working together, the parents, the schools, the community at large. It's really important. The most important being parent engagement. Studies carried out by the National Center for Family and Community shows that when parents are engaged with their children's education, particularly through asking questions about what they're learning at school, the children perform better. Now, for this to happen, you have to engage the parents in the first place. So I'm sure, obviously, you do parent evenings, I think. That's what it's called here as well, yeah? Parents evenings. What do you call it? Okay, fantastic. Okay, good. So I think that we need to do more of that to enable this collaboration that we're talking about. Those meaningful relationships with parents help the school community. Looking back at the days of COVID-19, remote learning was the order of the day. It was quickly evident that most parents could not help their children. They had no idea what the children were learning at school. The school is the bedrock of society, and we all yearn for information. We can safely say, therefore, if the school is right, it will no doubt lead to a better society. Likewise, if the school is wrong, alas, we reap what we sow. Right or wrong, though, in the hands of those who have the power to steer, which is myself and you, we therefore need to take a holistic approach and look at the whole school system and their preparedness to face the unexpected, i.e. another crisis, God forbid, but should it come. We all know we live in an ever-changing world, as I had said earlier. As a parent, a grandparent, and an educator of almost 30 years, a good chunk of my life was spent nurturing young lives. Some notable ones have become doctors, lawyers, engineers, and some, of course, teachers like yourselves. That has been my life's focus. I cannot stand by and watch this system break down. What we need is the inclination to see the best in our children and in young people and boldly step forward with positivity, hope, and unrelenting aspiration, inspiring teachers, parents, and everyone involved with children and young adults by the fundamental importance of unity. It must be a partnership. I will repeat that. It must be a partnership that unites families and schools as communities of character, bound by a culture that once again places our children at the center of our tribal village. Really important. Before I conclude, we had COVID-19. Nobody was expecting it. In fact, if my father wakes up and we tell him all about this, because he's gone a long time, he just would not have any understanding. It was really bad. But guess what? When COVID came, we were all partakers. All of us. No discrimination. Everybody was affected. I used to go to bed praying that, God, please let me wake up and see my children tomorrow. It was really bad. I was scared to watch the TV, to watch news, because you see the ambulances, you see the bodies, and it was painful. Really painful. What was even more painful is when my daughter my second daughter had to go into hospital. She had a cancer scare, and that was in itself painful. So for me to be able to now drop out the hospital and not be able to go in with her, you know what? When you have faith, it conquers all fear. Because as fearful as I was on the day, one, I couldn't show it to her. Two, I had to remind myself what happened to Peter when he doubted. What happened? He began to sink. So I had to remind myself that, no, if God has said she's healed, then she's healed. And I had to stand on those words. And to God be the glory, she was given the all clear. Hallelujah. Yes, hallelujah. But the fact of the matter remains that it happened, and we all went through it. So I'm now saying to you, sorry, please, can I ask, how many schools here follow the British curriculum? A few, the British curriculum. Yeah, because I've been to a few schools in Nigeria, and they all say they do the British curriculum. And some do it extremely well, and some do it extremely silly. I need to tell you something that is happening in the UK right now and around the world, and we are part of that world, and it is called trans. And I know trans, T-R-A-N-S, transgender. So, basically, what we have going on in the UK right now is a 7-year-old child called Ellie can come into school and approach her teacher. That could be me, that could be you, because we're the teachers, and say, Miss, I don't want to be Ellie anymore. I want to be Steve, because I feel like I'm Steve. And you know what? Me, as her teacher, I dare not say to her, what are you talking about, Ellie? I wanted to say something else, but I can't say to her, she's talking rubbish. I must support her. Yes. That is the law in, not just in the UK, around the world. I have to support her. I have to support her in wanting to become Steve. And what is even worse with that is I don't have to inform her parents either. I don't need consent. There's no consent. So I need to just help her follow that process. And if I refuse to do that, and I'm sure you've been following the news, there's been a teacher, a Christian teacher, who's just been, not only was he sacked from school, he's been banned by the High Court from ever teaching again. Yes. And that happened because a young boy in his math class, this is a math teacher, a young boy in his math class had said he wanted to be identified as a girl. But this teacher has known this kid as a boy all his life, from year 7 to whatever year he was now. And that's why he got the sack. He went to court because he fought it, and unfortunately he did not win that case. So we have a lot of that going on at the moment. I'm leaving Nigeria on the 13th of this month, June, next Tuesday, simply because I have a meeting in Parliament and I want to fight this. I can't stand by and have a 7-year-old say to me they want to become a boy when they're a girl, and I approve it. Hence why I'm going to see an MP who deals with education, and I want it to go to Parliament. I want them to raise a bill that will enable us to change that and to at least have that age raised to 18. When you're 18, you are an adult. At 18, you can vote. That's what the law says. At 18, you can buy alcohol. At 18, you can have your driver's license. Those 3 key things that I mentioned, you cannot do at 7, you cannot do at 10, you cannot do at 16. You have to be 18 to be able to do those things. So I don't understand how my child at the age of 16, 7, 10, whatever it is, will be able to make that decision to say, Mom, I don't want to be a boy anymore, I want to be a girl, hence I should follow through with that. I do not subscribe to that at all. At all. Hence why we must fight it. Now, the question then is, how do you fight it? Because you see, for those of you who want to come to school in the UK, you would face that. For all of us here in Nigeria, it's coming to us. So this is what, no, it is, it's coming to us. Because unless we want to kid ourselves, would we say we do not have, even in some of our family members, oh gosh, some of our family members, we do have gay people within that family member. And God knows I do not condemn them. Why? Because God loves everybody. But what I'm saying is, let them reach that age where they can make that decision, which is age 18 and above. And hopefully, between age 0 and them getting to 18, you are pleading the blood over your child, and they are not getting themselves involved in anything like that. It's really important that you are aware. Why? Because most of the schools in Nigeria also like to bring foreign heads. And when we bring the foreign head from the UK or from Canada or wherever they've come from, that is what they believe. Indeed, some of them are themselves. So how do you then ask a headmaster, or what do you call them here? Not proprietor, headmaster? Yeah, okay, head teacher. How do you then ask a head teacher to deal with a child who's saying this to you? You can't fight it, because the person who's the leader of the school is one himself. And this is something that is coming. Remember, I'll tell you this. For every woman here, before 1979, you were not allowed to vote. Women began to vote in Nigeria from 1979. That's the information I found with the research that I did. Prove me wrong if that's not the case. Check it out. Now, the question then is, if women weren't allowed to vote until 1979, and then from 1979, every single woman is allowed to vote. If you don't do it now, it's your choice, but not because you're not allowed to. So the question then is, when this thing comes, how are you going to not be a part of it? Do you follow me? I mean, one country right now, Uganda, has stood their ground that they're not having it. If anybody is found doing any of these things, straight to jail. Unless we have those policies in place, and this is what you need to be fighting for, so please do not say it's not my business or I reject it. Don't be saying that. Please make sure you're helping this government to fight that. Because many a times has the American government come to Nigeria, come to Africa, to be precise, to want to impose these honors. Thank God for Baba Obasanjo when they came at one point and he said they can carry the nonsense and take it out because he's not interested. That was many years ago. We are now in the era of transgender. That's even worse. Transgender, I will explain it for those of us that don't understand, because I'm sure not all of us got what I mean. So transgender simply means I'm transforming myself from this woman to become a man. And that means I'm actually having the hormones. I'm taking hormone tablets that changes me from being female to a male. It means I'm having surgery to change the bits and bobs that make me female to become a man. So those are the things that are going on. So please, 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 if you can keep your children, because for some of those young people now, they see it as a fashionable thing. Not because they were born like that, clearly not, but they're seeing it as a trend. Just like when the charismatic churches started. It started with 1, 2, before you know it, everybody is having one sort of, charismatic church, and everybody, you have to be seen to be going to a church like that. The Methodist wasn't good enough, the Anglican wasn't good enough anymore. Everybody just wanted to go to those churches because they felt it was fashionable. So it's a trend. And unfortunately, because children would always be children, they would reason like a child. They reason like children. So it's our duty as teachers, as parents, as carers, to nurture these children aright, to continue to speak positively to them, to continue to understand what they're doing and who their friends are. Because I think that is also more important. Knowing who your children are and knowing who their friends are. It's really important. Unfortunately for us in the UK, because I say it's unfortunate, we don't have a choice. We really do not have a choice. It's not about sending your child to a private school. Even the private schools have to take it on board. My daughter was running a creche. She had a nursery school. And when Ofsted came to inspect, they insisted that if she didn't have books that showcased daddy and daddy, mommy and mommy, they will shut the nursery down. So I'm not lying to you. Trust me. Go and Google it. You will find it. Or speak to people. So that is what is going on. So I go back to you being a visionary leader. How do you deal with crisis? How will you deal with crisis? So I'm going to throw this question to you. You have a child who's lived in the UK all his life. And as you and I know, when our children begin to mess up in England, what do? We send them back to Nigeria. We now remember that Nigeria is better. So I don't understand it. So we then send them back to Nigeria. Like, let them sort it out. I think that's totally unfair. It's unfair on the child. It's unfair on you who take them in. Because the question is, how did that child even get to that state in the first place? People have asked me, including Mrs. Fowler here, that how did I raise my children in Nigeria? No, I didn't. I raised my children in England. I can only give what I have. And the way my parents raised me is how I raise my children. So please, do not be looking to the West to raise your children. Raise your children the way you were raised. They will not die, trust me. Even the Bible says it. Yes? So please, be careful in how you raise your children and how you nurture the children in your care. Because you're not just parents, you're also teachers, you're carers. But again, I'm going to ask this question. How will you deal with this crisis? So you've had a child whose age, 14, 15, they send them home. And of course, this child is very open to what I've just explained to you. And they come to your classroom, and they say to you that, you know what, I fancy Ademide, and this is Damilare telling you this, and they're both male. How do you deal with that? Because it's coming. Don't think it's not. Believe me, it's coming. There's absolutely no way. I mean, I don't know if it's already started. It's in your law. Oh, it's illegal. Okay. Sorry, excuse me, please. I've just heard here now that it is illegal for that to happen here. I'm really pleased to hear that, but I'm going to ask you a question. Is it illegal to steal? Fine. Are they stealing? Brilliant. So the fact that it is illegal, does that mean it's not going to happen? No, it will happen because... Yeah, but yes, I'm happy. I like that. We can expel them. Have we helped him? We haven't helped him. Good. Yeah, well, exactly. The solution is what we have on hand here. One, it is illegal. And I really hope that that illegality would actually carry through, which means what is the repercussion for that? Not just in schools, in society. So in society, what is the repercussion? So for example, if we see Mr. James, who is 21-year-old, who obviously is one of these, who arrests him? Is it the police? What do? The police arrest him. I've been in Nigeria a few years ago, and we had almost 30 or 40 gay men gathered together doing church. In Ikeja. police went after them after. Praise the Lord. Right. How do you deal with such? That's my question. Well, I don't know, because I know it's a major problem and I know it is coming. So we just have to tighten. Maybe one of the things that you can do as a school owner and as a teacher, to have it as a policy. Because one of the things that unfortunately not many schools do is have policies. If you do, many don't. And that is a bad. You need to have policies. Please. Now, I'm going to ask those schools who know themselves, you know, in church, when they say, who wants to give their life and stuff like that, bow your head, close your eyes and stuff. And of course, we all kind of pretend that they're not talking to me, I'm good. But somehow, deep down your heart, I need to really dedicate my life. So you bow your head, pretending you're looking at your phone, but really and truly, you're doing that prayer as well. That's the same way. No, I know, because I've done it as well. So that is the same way that I'm going to say now, please, if you know your school does not have policies, if you know your school is meant to be a British international school, but you're really not a British international school, don't call yourself that. Do not call yourself that, because that is not good leadership either. Be proud to be who you are. If you're running the Nigerian curriculum, look, our kids there, are my daughters who are grown women, are learning Yoruba. Now, I'm sorry, I should have taught them, but I myself learned it as an adult, because I didn't learn it, I didn't grow up speaking Yoruba, so it was really difficult for me. So it was difficult for me to teach it to my kids. But they're buying books and they're learning it themselves now. So in that case, if they can do that, then you can do the same. Ask for mentoring. Look, the people up front here, I know the schools, I've been to the schools. Mrs. Kaiki doesn't remember me, but the first time I went to her school, it was over 10 years ago. We came from the UK, we came with a few ladies, and we came to run a program there. But she just breezed in and out, and I was just happy to be a part of the whole thing. So yeah, but it was lovely seeing you again, man. But we know the kind of outreach that she runs. We know what Vivian Fowler does. Thank God for Mommy, who started the project, and our beautiful daughter, carrying on. They are happy to be mentors. Humble yourself. Ask for help. Most importantly, do not call yourself that, because you're lying. Just be who you are. Just be the school that you are and do well at what you're doing. Remember the quote that woman had, Maya? Do better. And after you've done better, what else do? You continue to do better. And that's doing better. My name is Yemisi Akindele, and I'm really, really pleased to be here. Thank you so much.